Hi, my name is Destiny Gattis, and I took it upon myself to do some research and ask those in the field of human development and family studies their perspective on this topic. Meet Dr. Daniel Perlman, a professor here at UNCG whom I interviewed after reading the chapter, The 7 C's of the Study of Personal Relationship Research, in a book that he was featured in. How did you get interested in this field, and what are you currently working on?
Okay, I'm going to take that in two different questions.
Okay.
The first thing that I would say is about how did I get interested. Well, I grew up in a unique family. It had lots of strengths and had some dysfunction. And I think that combination, even when I was really a young child, when I was like 5 or 6 years old, a burning question for me was, why do some couples get along and other couples don't?
Yeah.
And I saw both of those things. So I think that experience really drove my interest. And I've gotten more sophisticated and all of that sort of stuff, but I really still have a central question, which is, why do some couples work
and some don't?
And some don't. For me, but I went to a small college, and I had very good faculty, both in psych and in soc. And people at that time told me, find something you love and get paid for it. And I really liked the courses I was taking in psych and soc. I think the thing that was a little bit unique for me was the people who were really the core faculty members when I was an undergraduate. They were not in the areas that interested me really so much. I did study with a guy named Ira Reese, who was a family sociologist. But he left my college before I graduated, and there was another man who was a more influential person on me. And he was really a perception and cognition guy, and that really wasn't the thing that I was most interested in. But I think he was a terrific instructor, and he was also a very good research experimentalist. And so I did do like a fourth-year thesis, and I did a study and all of that sort of thing, and it went pretty well. I was interested in psychology. I was really interested in 3 areas.
Okay.
I was interested in clinical psychology, social psychology, and marriage and the family. And really, I guess, my interest in marriage and the family was really the dominant one. And so then I went to graduate school. And I ended up doing experimental social psychology.
Okay.
That was my background. But I think I had always been interested in close relationships. So what am I interested in now? In the middle of my career, in the earlier parts of my career, I ran a lab. I had people who worked with me. They just did the things that I was interested in, and so on. Then I had a long period of my career where I did administration or editing. And now I'm sort of in the twilight of my career. And I mostly do integrative scholarship.
Okay.
You know, I say I'm the master of the encyclopedia article. I get one of the things, when you get old and you've had some success in your career, people ask you to do things. They ask me to write the final chapter of books.
Okay.
And I seem to be willing to do that. So what have I done in the last few months?
Yeah.
The biggest success I had in my career was I studied loneliness.
Okay.
And I did an encyclopedia thing on loneliness. Those are the things that I did.
So for the next question, in the reading, The 7 C's of the Study of Personal Relationships and Research, it addresses how you and your colleagues during the 1980s and the 1990s really focused on innovations such as daily diaries, which was known as a technique that moved research out of the laboratories. Do you think that this technique helped pave the way for other types of research that you normally wouldn't always be able to observe in a laboratory setting, such as relationship maintenance or the dark side of relationships?
Yeah. The answer to that is yes. And let me go back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I was trained in the 60s, and in the 60s, the experimental method was very dominant in the field that I was in, social psychology. Study of relationships has people from multiple fields in it. A guy named Steve Duck and I we sort of pushed it back against experimental social psychology, and we said you really need to get out of the laboratory. I do think that it made a lot of difference. I think that if you look at the study of close relationships today, if you went through articles in the 1960s and counted the number of ones that were experiments and the ones that weren't, the experiments would have been well over 50%. And in some years, probably 75% or more. And today, if you look at the kinds of research that's done, it's much more varied in terms of methodology. One of the things in science is you do see periods, you see epochs in the field moved away from doing research in laboratories and became more what I call studying relationships in everyday life. And I think that was an important trend.
In the reading, there was a 2016 survey that examined all the theories that researchers had used in their studies.
Yep.
The results concluded that overall there were 3 big theories: attachment theory, interdependence theory, and the evolutionary theory. Which one of these do you feel was most influential in the study of close relationships?
Well, we've been talking a little bit about history, and I think that interdependence theory preceded the interest in attachment theory by a few years, and I think that there's kind of like they each have had periods where they were quite important.
Yeah.
It was really child attachment, and even today it's kind of like there's people who study attachment in children and there's people who study attachment in adulthood, and they don't talk to each other a whole lot. You know, it's kind of like two branches of the same family. But in 1987, a guy named Phil Shaver wrote this paper on an attachment view of love, and that really just opened the floodgates.
Okay.
And then there was all this stuff on attachment, and it's really been, I think, since 2000, probably the dominant thing. One of the things with theories is they come and go.
Yeah.
And it's still very vibrant, and it's still really, I think, the dominant theory. Partially, there's been a breakdown of marriage as an institution, and people like me got more interested in just, people who just got together, what does it mean to be close to somebody?
Yeah.
And what are the processes involved, and so on.
Which one have you prefer, like, in your own work? I know you kind of answered the question.
Which theory?
Yes.
Well, I edited a book on attachment theory, but I was the editor, and the other person was the attachment theorist.
Okay.
I guess I have been influenced by attachment theory. One of the things is I am eclectic. I just, I think if you want to understand a problem, it's good to have a variety of ideas that come
definitely.
to it. If you want to do research, you need to have some kind of more focused kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I see virtues. I actually see virtues in various theories. Each of these theories has some things that it can very effectively explain. Theories don't get to be so dominant unless they have something going for them.
Yeah.
And I do have this view that they come and go.
So for my last question, the reading states adult attachment as a megatrend of the 2006-2016 decade. Given that attachment literature predates 2006, why do you think it has taken so long for scholars to study adults or older adults in this way regarding the attachment?
I'm going to say two things.
Mm-hmm.
I think, first of all, that a lot of Bowlby's work really was with children.
Mm-hmm.
And then along comes Ainsworth, and she does this, famous experimental situation, observational situation,
Mm-hmm.
a strange situation. So there was a lot of work there. Bowlby never really was just a child person.
Mm-hmm.
He always thought that this was a process that went from cradle to grave. Why didn't they come into the mainstream?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I think that Bowlby was a little more clinical. Well, he was a practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
And so he picked up people who followed him in clinical. Ainsworth picked up people who followed her in child development. But there was no real spokesperson. And it was really not till Shaver,
Mm-hmm.
who was this personality social psychologist, who had he wasn't interested in a specific phenomenon. Actually, I think he kind of came through it because of loneliness. He sometimes has talked about how he had been at a conference about loneliness, and that really got him interested in attachment. But he was this guy who, was concerned with a lot of different aspects of intimate and social behavior. But he was really a spark plug for it. He's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a very good combination of, he's a very good thinker,
Mm-hmm.
and he loves thinking, but he also had all these studies which were coming out, like I suspect he's got 300 publications or something, so he touched on a lot of topics, and then that sort of, I think, part of it has to do with science follows, you get a problem, and then the next guy comes along or the next woman comes along and sort of takes it one step further.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of it. And I think that was what was going on. It got started really more in the child area. And Ainsworth certainly had a big influence, and then there was some concern with adulthood, but it really wasn't a broad concern. It was a more focused kind of concern.
Meet assistant professor from East Carolina University, Jake Jensen. Jay was able to answer my questions via email after reading the chapter, These Happy Golden Years, The Role of Retirement in Marital Quality, an excerpt from the book, Couple Relationships in the Middle and Later